Hands up, drop it!
It's just a tool, officer. My son gave it to me, he's gone now. It's not a weapon.
Knife, don't move! Sir, comply now.
Why you assuming I'm armed?
Blackout walking!
The body cam footage from that cold Detroit night in 2020 starts with a shaky view of snow covered sidewalks under flickering streetlights. Officer Daniel Ramirez, a young patrolman with a tense grip on his flashlight, approaches a lone figure shuffling along the curb. The man, later identified as 61-year-old Iraq War veteran Willis, preacher, Glover, turns slowly, his breath visible in the freezing air. "Sir, stop right there," Ramirez barks, his voice echoing off the brick row houses. In the frame, you can see both the officer's extended arm and Glover's weathered face, etched with confusion and fatigue. Glover's hand is in his pocket. No, wait, it's coming out now, holding something metallic that catches the light. "He's got a knife!" Ramirez shouts into his radio, his body tensing as he draws his weapon. But as the camera jerks, it's clear it's not a knife. It's a small, folded multitool, the kind with pliers and a screwdriver. Two sharp cracks ring out, gunshots, and Glover crumples to the ground, blood staining the fresh snow. The officer stands over him, visible in the wide angle lens, his face pale as he calls for backup. Glover's body lies there, unmoving, for hours until dawn breaks. This wasn't just a tragic mistake, it was a powder keg of misunderstandings, fueled by fear, prejudice, and a system that too often sees threat where there's only pain. But who was Willis Glover, this man they called Preacher, and what led him to that fateful walk? As the footage cuts to static, one question lingers: was this self-defense or something far darker? The streets of Detroit in 2020 were no stranger to tension, especially in the East Side neighborhoods where Glover had lived his whole life. Born in 1959 to a factory worker father and a schoolteacher mother, Willis grew up in the shadow of Motown's glory days. But by the time he was a teen, the city was crumbling under economic decay and racial unrest. He enlisted in the army right out of high school, seeking purpose and a steady paycheck. Iraq changed him. 2 tours in the early 2000s left him with shrapnel scars on his left leg and a mind haunted by roadside bombs and lost comrades. They called him Preacher because even in the trenches, he'd quote Bible verses to steady the squad, his deep baritone voice cutting through the chaos like a sermon. Back home by 2005, he married his high school sweetheart, Evelyn, a resilient woman with warm brown eyes and a laugh that could light up a room. They raised 2 kids in a modest bungalow on Gratiot Avenue. Their son Jamal, who followed in his dad's footsteps and deployed to Afghanistan, and daughter Keisha, who became a nurse. But tragedy struck hard in 2018 when Jamal was killed by an IED overseas. The multi-tool Glover carried that night, it was Jamal's last gift, engraved with "Stay sharp, Dad." Glover worked odd jobs after his honorable discharge, security guard mechanic, but PTSD gnawed at him, making sleep elusive and tempers short. That December evening, after a heated argument with Evelyn over bills piling up like the snow outside, he grabbed his coat for a walk to clear his head. The air bit at his dark skin, wind whipping through his graying beard. Little did he know, a nosy neighbor, peering from behind curtains, had already dialed 911, whispering about some black guy wandering with a knife. The call log later revealed the bias baked in. No mention of the man's age or harmless gait, just assumptions that turned a veteran into a villain. As Glover strolled, his mind replayed memories of Baghdad patrols, the weight of the multitool in his pocket a small comfort. But why did that neighbor jump to conclusions? And what pressures were building in Officer Ramirez's world that made him see danger in an old man's tool? The story was about to unravel in ways no one expected. Glover's motives that night were simple, rooted in the quiet battles he fought long after the war ended. The argument with Evelyn wasn't about money alone, it was the culmination of years of strain. Since Jamal's death, Glover had withdrawn, his once vibrant faith tested by grief. Why him, Lord? Why not me? He'd mutter in the dark, fists clenched against invisible enemies. Evelyn, with her own burdens, caring for aging parents and working double shifts at a diner, had pleaded with him to seek VA help, but pride held him back. "I've survived worse," he'd say, his voice cracking. That walk was his ritual, a way to outpace the anxiety clawing at his chest, the flashbacks of desert sand turning to Detroit snow. Meanwhile, Officer Ramirez, a 28-year-old Hispanic cop fresh from the academy, patrolled with his own demons. Raised in a rough part of southwest Detroit, he'd joined the force to make a difference, but 3 years and had jaded him. Recent riots after high-profile police incidents had left the department on edge, with mandatory overtime and whispers of defunding. That night, Ramirez was paired with a rookie partner, Officer Sarah Klein, a white woman in her mid-20s with wide eyes and a nervous habit of fidgeting with her vest. Their dashcam captured the initial response: suspicious male, possible armed. The dispatcher crackled. Ramirez's heart raced. He'd lost a buddy to a stabbing the year before. As they pulled up, the bodycam switched on, showing Ramirez stepping out, Klein hanging back but visible in the frame's edge. Glover, lost in thought, didn't hear the first command. When he turned, the multitool slipped from his pocket as he reached for his ID. "Knife!" Ramirez yelled, adrenaline surging. But here's the twist: later forensics showed the tool was closed, harmless. Was it fear or something ingrained deeper, like the racial profiling stats plaguing Detroit PD? The encounter was seconds from exploding, and no one saw the storm coming. The escalation unfolded in a blur, captured frame by frame on Ramirez's bodycam, with Klein's footage corroborating from a side angle, both officers and Glover in view, the snow crunching under boots like brittle bones. "Hands up, drop it!" Ramirez commanded, his Glock drawn, beam piercing the night. Glover froze, his arthritis-stiff fingers fumbling the multitool. "It's just a tool, man," he rasped, voice steady from years of command, but his eyes betrayed the rising panic. Flashbacks to insurgent ambushes where hesitation meant death. The camera shakes as Ramirez advances, Klein shouting, "Sir, compli," visible in the periphery with her hand on her taser. Glover stepped back, slipping on ice, and the multitool glinted again. In that split second, Ramirez fired, once in the chest, Glover staggering, then a second shot as he turned, hitting his back. The pops echoed like thunder, Glover collapsing face down, blood pooling dark against white. "Shots fired!" Subject down, Ramirez gasped, his face ashen in the lens, hands trembling as he cuffed the dying man per protocol. Klein rushed forward, her cam showing Glover's labored breaths, the multitool inches from his hand, clearly no knife. Neighbors' lights flicked on, phones emerging to record the chaos. Glover whispered, "Tell Evelyn, I'm sorry," before going still. The air reeked of gunpowder and fear, sirens wailing in the distance. Emotions boiled over Ramirez, backing away, muttered, "Ha lunged at me," but the footage told a different tale. Klein's radio crackled with urgency, her voice breaking. This wasn't clean, it was messy, raw, a veteran cut down in his own neighborhood. As paramedics arrived too late, the real questions began: would the system protect its own, or finally deliver justice? Let me know in the comments if you've ever felt that heart-pounding fear during a routine stop. Have you been there? The immediate aftermath was a whirlwind of grief and outrage that rippled through Detroit like a winter storm. Evelyn Glover, alerted by a frantic neighbor's call, rushed to the scene wrapped in her robe, her screams piercing the night as she saw her husband's body under the yellow tape. "That's my Willis!" "He was just walking," she cried, collapsing into Keisha's arms when their daughter arrived. The multitool, now evidence, lay bagged on the sidewalk, Jamal's engraving mocking the tragedy. By morning, Glover's body still lay there for hours as investigators processed the scene, a delay that fueled rumors of cover-up. The East Side community erupted, protests formed at the precinct. Veterans groups marched with signs reading, "Preacher deserved better," their weathered faces mirroring Glover's. Ramirez was placed on leave, Klein too, both haunted. Ramirez replaying the shots in nightmares, questioning if bias clouded his judgment. Media swarmed, bodycam clips leaking online, sparking national debate. Was this another case of walking while black? Glover's funeral drew hundreds, his casket draped in an American flag, eulogies painting him as a hero betrayed by the country he served. Evelyn, hollow-eyed, whispered to reporters, he survived Iraq, but not Detroit. The pressure mounted on the DA charge or not, families on both sides shattered. Ramirez's wife fearing for his life amid threats. Yet amid the chaos, whispers emerged of inconsistencies in the 911 call. Could this unravel the official story? The investigation was just heating up, promising revelations that would shake everyone involved. As the investigation deepened in the months following that 2020 shooting, layers of truth peeled back like old paint on Detroit's abandoned factories. Detectives pored over the bodycam footage, frame by frame, noting how Ramirez's angle showed Glover's lunge as more of a slip on ice, while Klein's cam captured the multitool's innocent gleam. Internal Affairs interviewed the neighbor, a white retiree named Harold Benson, who admitted embellishing the call. He looked suspicious. You know, code for racial fear in a changing neighborhood. Benson's history revealed prior complaints about those people, adding fuel to profiling claims. Glover's autopsy confirmed no drugs, just hypertension meds, his blood alcohol 0. Veterans advocates rallied, digging into Ramirez's record. 2 prior excessive force complaints, both involving black suspects, dismissed as unfounded. Klein, torn, confided in a colleague about Ramirez's pre-shift rant on Thugs in the Hood, caught on precinct audio. Then the twist. Phone records showed Benson had argued with Glover weeks earlier over a property line. Petty revenge. Evelyn pushed for transparency, her grief turning to fire. My husband bled for this country, and they treated him like trash. Community pressure led to federal oversight, with DOJ sniffing around similar Detroit cases. Emotions ran high, anger at systemic rot, hope for accountability. But as evidence mounted, a bombshell dropped. Ramirez's partner Klein was about to flip. What would she reveal that could change everything? Type system failed. In the comments if you believe veterans like Preacher get the short end too often. By 2024, the trial in Detroit's Wayne County Circuit Court brought the saga to a tense close, with justice hanging by a thread. Officer Ramirez stood accused of manslaughter, his defense claiming reasonable fear in a high-crime area. Prosecutors played the body cams repeatedly, highlighting discrepancies. Glover's hands never aggressive, the shots unnecessary. Klein testified against her partner, tearfully admitting he panicked too quick. It wasn't a knife. The jury, a mix of races and ages, deliberated for days, haunted by Glover's service record projected on screens. Evelyn sat stoic in the gallery, clutching Jamal's dog tags, her testimony evoking sobs. Willis was my rock, broken by war, then shattered by fear. Outside, protests swelled, veterans chanting for reform. In the end, the verdict stunned not guilty, citing split-second decisions. Ramirez walked free, though his career ended in resignation. The Glover family received a quiet settlement, but no apology. Detroit PD implemented body cam reviews, a small win amid ongoing distrust. Evelyn channeled her pain into advocacy, speaking at VA events. Preacher's story isn't over, it's a warning. Years later, his grave in a quiet cemetery bore fresh flowers, a reminder of lost dignity. The system, flawed and biased, failed another hero, sparking calls for change that echoed beyond 2024. What do you think? Did justice prevail, or was it another cover-up? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if this hit home, hit that subscribe button for more stories that uncover the truth. The streets of Detroit's East Side had always carried a certain weight after dark, especially in December 2020 when the wind came off the river like a slap and the sodium streetlights turned every shadow into something suspicious. Willis, Preacher, Glover knew those streets better than most. He'd walked them as a boy delivering newspapers, as a young man heading to the bus stop for the night shift at Chrysler before the army called, and later as a father pushing a stroller with Jamal giggling inside. That night the snow was coming down steady, not a blizzard yet, but enough to muffle sound and make every footstep feel deliberate. He wore his old army surplus coat, the one with the faded name tape still stitched above the pocket, collar turned up against the cold that settled deep in his bad knee. In his right-hand pocket rested the Multitool, black-handled Leatherman with a tiny brass plate screwed to the side. Stay sharp, Dad. Jamal had mailed it from Kandahar 6 months before the blast that took him. Glover touched it like a rosary whenever the memories pressed too hard. He hadn't planned to be out long, just enough to let the shouting with Evelyn cool off. She'd thrown the electric bill on the table and asked why he still refused the VA counselor. Because I ain't broken, he'd snapped louder than he meant. The silence after that hurt worse than the words. So he grabbed the coat, muttered, "I need air," and stepped into the night. The first block felt good, lungs burning clean, heartbeat slowing. He passed the boarded up barbershop where he used to get his fade, past the corner store still flying a faded Piemonte flag. His mind drifted to Baghdad, to the way dust would hang in the air after a mortar round, how you could taste metal for hours. He shook it off. Not tonight. 2 blocks later, he heard the low rumble of an engine turning the corner behind him. Headlights swept across his back, lingered a second too long, then kept going. He didn't turn. People drove slow on gray shit when they were looking. He kept walking, pace steady, hands in pockets. That's when the first spotlight hit, bright white, pinning him like a moth. A second later, the red and blue lights pulsed silently. Glover stopped, raised his left hand slowly out of instinct, palm open. Old trainings show empty hands, move deliberate, speak calm. The driver's door opened. Officer Daniel Ramirez stepped out, boots crunching snow, right hand already riding the grip of his Glock. From the passenger side came Officer Sarah Klein, younger, gripping her flashlight like it was a lifeline, staying a step behind, but in frame. Both officers and Glover visible on the bodycam feed that would later become evidence, viral clips, courtroom exhibits. Ramirez's voice cut through the quiet. "Sir? Stop right there. Hands where I can slowly." Glover turned slowly, snowflakes catching in his gray beard. "I'm stopped, officer." "What's the problem?" "Got a call. Said a man was walking around with a knife." "That you?" Glover's brow furrowed. "Knife." He felt the weight of the multi-tool shift in his pocket. "Ain't no knife on me. Just out for a walk." "Take your hand out of your pocket." Slowly. Glover hesitated, not defiance, just the arithmetic of survival clicking in his head. Pull the hand out empty, or explain first. He chose explain. "Officer, it's cold. I got arthritis in this hand. I'm reaching for my ID. That's all. Don't reach. Show me both hands." Now, Ramirez's voice had climbed half an octave. Klein shifted weight, her beam jittering across Glover's chest. On the footage, you can see the moment Glover's jaw tightens. The same look soldiers get when they realize the ambush is already sprung. He started to ease his right hand out, palm up, explaining again. "It's a multi-tool. My son gave it to me. He's gone now." It's not. The word weapon never left his mouth. Ramirez saw the glint of steel as the multi-tool cleared the pocket. Closed position, 4-inch handle, pliers folded in. But in the flashlight beam, in the snow glare, under the red-blue strobe, it looked enough like danger to a man who'd already lost a friend to a blade the year before. "Knife!" Ramirez barked, stepping forward fast. Glover flinched, tried to turn his body sideways. Old reflex protect the vitals. His foot caught a ridge of ice. He stumbled half a step. 2 muzzle flashes lit the night like lightning. The first round punched through Glover's chest just left of center. The second caught him in the upper back as he twisted and fell. He hit the snow face, down with a wet crunch, arms splayed, multi-tool skittering 2 feet away. Blood spread fast, dark against white, steaming for a few seconds before the cold stole the heat. Ramirez stood frozen, Glock still up, breathing hard. Klein rushed forward, dropping to her knees, fingers searching for a pulse while yelling into the radio. "Shots fired! Shots fired! Mail down Gracia and Balfour! Send medics!" The body cam kept rolling. You can hear Ramirez's ragged exhale, see his hands start to shake. Klein's cam catches her, looking back at him, eyes wide with something between shock and accusation. Dan, he was turning away. Ramirez didn't answer. He just stared at the man he'd just killed. 61 years old, 2 tours in Iraq, Purple Heart recipient, father of a fallen soldier. Now lying motionless in the snow outside his own neighborhood. Neighbors' porch lights snapped on one by one. Phones came out. Someone screamed from a second-floor window. Sirens were already rising in the distance. But Glover's body stayed right there on the sidewalk until well after sunrise. Crime scene tape went up, evidence markers placed. The multi-tool photographed, bagged, tagged. And somewhere in the back of an ambulance that never got there in time, Evelyn Glover's phone started ringing with the call, "Every military family dreads." Only this time it wasn't a chaplain on the other end. It was a neighbor who'd seen the lights and heard the shots. The footage ends with Ramirez standing alone for a moment after Klein steps away to direct traffic. He looks down at his own hands, then at the dark stains spreading under Glover. For 1 second, the body cam catches something close to regret crossing his face. Then the screen cuts to black. But that was only the beginning. The real storm was just waking up. Type justice. In the comments right now, if you believe that old veteran should never have been left lying in the snow like that. What would you have done if you were walking home and saw those lights come on behind you? Let me know below. I'm reading every comment. The immediate aftermath hit like a grenade in slow motion, shattering lives on both sides of that blood-stained snow in Detroit back in 2020. Evelyn Glover's phone rang at 2:17 a.m. Not the police, but Mrs. Jenkins from across the street, her voice trembling. Ev, honey, you better come quick. There's lights and tape on Gracia. I think it's Willis. Evelyn bolted out in her nightgown and slippers, the cold biting her skin as she ran the 3 blocks. heart pounding like war drums. She arrived to yellow tape fluttering in the wind, floodlights turning the scene into a stark tableau. There he was, her husband of 38 years, face down, arms cuffed behind his back even in death, the Multitool bagged nearby like some criminal artifact. "That's my man. Let me through," she wailed, pushing against the officers until Keisha pulled up in her car, wrapping arms around her mother as sobs racked them both. The paramedics had arrived within minutes of the shots, but Glover was gone, pronounced at the scene from massive internal bleeding. His body stayed there until 7 a.m., photographers and techs milling around, neighbors gathering in clusters, murmuring about another one. Veterans from the local VFW post showed up by dawn, their leather vests patched with unit insignias, faces grim as they stared at the outline in the melting snow. Preacher served 2 tours, one grizzled Marine growled to a reporter. "And this is how we repay him," left like roadkill. Officer Ramirez was whisked away in an unmarked car, his body cam confiscated, placed on administrative leave with pay. He sat in his living room that morning, staring at the wall, his wife Maria rubbing his back while their toddler played oblivious on the floor. It happened so fast, he kept repeating, the scent of gunpowder still on his uniform. But doubt crept in. Had he really seen a knife? Or was it the neighborhood's rep, the recent spike in assaults on cops, clouding his eyes? Klein, his partner, fared worse. She called out sick the next day, replaying the footage in her mind, the way Glover's body jerked with each shot. He was old Dan. Harmless, she'd whispered at the scene, but protocol silenced her then. Word spread like wildfire through Detroit's east side. Social media exploded with grainy cell phone videos from windows, hashtags like "Fire Justice for Preacher" trending locally by noon. The Glover family home became a vigil site, candles flickering on the porch, photos of Willis in uniform propped against the railing, Jamal's flag draped casket from 2 years prior evoked in every conversation. Evelyn couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. She clutched the Multitool when it was finally returned weeks later, tracing the engraving with trembling fingers. "He just needed air," she told Keisha through tears. "After our fight, God. If I just let it go." The police union circled wagons fast. Statements about threatening behavior and officer safety hit the press before Glover's autopsy was even complete, but cracks showed the 9/11 tape leaked, revealing the neighbor's loaded words. "Black guy, looks shady, got something in his hand. Maybe a knife." No mention of age, limp, or peaceful walk. Community leaders demanded the body cam release, protests swelling outside the precinct with signs reading, "Veterans Matter," and "Stop shooting us." Tensions boiled, a few rocks thrown, tear gas deployed, echoing the riots of years past. For the Glovers, the pain was personal, visceral. Keisha quit her nursing shift to handle calls from lawyers, while Evelyn visited Willis's grave daily once he was buried, a simple VA plot with a fresh headstone, SAGT. Willis Glover, U.S. Army, beloved father and husband. The settlement talks started quietly, but money couldn't mend the hole. And amid the chaos, whispers grew: was this random, or tied to that old grudge with the neighbor? The investigation would dig deeper, unearthing motives that twisted the knife further. But as the city simmered, one revelation loomed that could flip the script entirely. As the investigation kicked into gear in early 2021, Detroit's Internal Affairs Division descended on the case like hawks, combing through every scrap of evidence from that fateful night back in 2020. The body cam footage became the star witness. Ramirez's cam showing the tense approach, Klein's providing a wider angle that captured both officers and Glover in the frame. No blind spots to hide behind. Frame by frame, analysts froze on the Multitool, closed, non-threatening, its pliers tucked away like a sleeping snake. But Ramirez's defense. In the moment, it looked lethal. His union rep argued in preliminary hearings, citing the dim lighting, the snow's glare turning metal into menace. Interviews piled up. Evelyn Glover sat in a stark room at the precinct, her voice steady but eyes red-rimmed, recounting Willis's PTSD episodes. He'd wake up yelling about patrols, but he never hurt a soul. That walk was his peace. Keisha added details about the Multitool. Jamal's last package from Afghanistan arrived days before his death. Dad carried it everywhere, like a piece of his boy. The neighbor, Harold Benson, squirmed under questioning, a 72-year-old widower with a history of noise complaints against rowdy kids in the neighborhood. "I saw him fiddling with something shiny," Benson mumbled. "Thought it was a blade. Better safe than sorry." But phone records revealed a twist. Benson had called Glover's landline 2 weeks prior, ranting about a fence dispute. "Stay off my property, or I'll make you regret it." Motive: petty revenge mask as concern. Ramirez himself broke during his third interview, sweat beading on his forehead under fluorescent lights. "I'd just come off a shift where a suspect pulled a real knife," he admitted, voice cracking. "Lost a buddy last year to something similar. When I saw that glint, I reacted." Klein, however, turned the tide. In a closed-door session, she revealed off the record chatter Ramirez's pre-shift jokes about keeping the hood in check, laced with racial undertones. He profiled, plain and simple, she whispered to investigators her loyalty fracturing under guilt. The audio from the patrol car backed it minutes before the stop, Ramirez griping about another call in this war zone. Community outrage fueled the probe. Veterans groups leaked partial footage online, sparking national headlines. The DOJ stepped in, reviewing Detroit PD's pattern of force against black residents. Stats showed disproportionate stops in East Side neighborhoods, with veterans often caught in the crossfire. A whistleblower from Dispatch added fuel. That 9/11 call was flagged as low priority until Benson emphasized armed blackmail, bumped it up instantly. Emotions peaked at town halls. Evelyn standing before a microphone, voice booming, "My husband fought for freedom overseas only to die in chains at home." Protests turned heated, one ending in arrests after clashes with riot gear-clad cops. Then the bombshell. Forensics on the bodycam audio uncovered a faint whisper from Glover just before the shots. "It's not a weapon, please." Muffled by wind but clear on enhancement. Ramirez's reasonable fear claim started crumbling. But as charges loomed, manslaughter for Ramirez, possible aiding for Klein, a deeper revelation emerged. Department training logs showed Ramirez had failed a de-escalation course twice, pushed through anyway due to shortages. Was this negligence from the top? The case was building to a courtroom showdown, but not without one final twist that would leave everyone reeling. Let me know in the comments. Have you ever called 911 on a neighbor or been the one profiled? Share your story. Type "profiled" if it's happened to you. The bombshell twist in the investigation hit like a sucker punch in late 2021, reshaping everything about that cold Detroit night back in 2020 and sending shockwaves through lives already fractured. It started with a tip from an anonymous source inside the Detroit PD, a veteran dispatcher who'd overheard Ramirez bragging at a bar about taking down threats before they strike. But the real gut-wrencher came from digital forensics. Ramirez's personal phone, seized under warrant, revealed text messages from the night before the shooting. Another shift in the jungle. He'd written to a buddy. "Gotta stay sharp. Too many of 'em out there." Them wasn't specified, but context screamed bias, especially paired with his search history. Articles on urban crime stats, heavy on racial demographics. The messages went viral when leaked, igniting fresh protests. Tires burned on Gratiot Avenue. Chants of "no justice, no peace" echoing through the East Side. For the Glover family, this revelation was a double-edged sword, validation mixed with fresh agony. Evelyn replayed the text in her mind, her anger boiling over at support groups where other widows shared similar stories. "They saw my Willis as a statistic, not a man," she'd say, her voice trembling but fierce. Keisha, balancing grief with activism, organized rallies with the NACP, her nursing scrubs traded for picket signs. The family's modest home became a hub for media interviews, flashbulbs popping as Evelyn held up photos of Willis in uniform, tall, broad-shouldered with a kind smile under that gray beard, medals pinned to his chest. But the exposure brought threats, anonymous calls whispering, "back off," forcing them to install security cameras. Financially, the settlement talks stalled. The city offered peanuts, citing ongoing review, while medical bills from Willis's old war injuries piled up unpaid. Officer Ramirez's world imploded faster. The text cost him allies, even the union distanced itself, labeling them poor judgment. He holed up in his southwest Detroit apartment, blinds drawn, paranoia setting in as protesters picketed outside. Maria packed bags for her parents' place, whispering, "Dan, this changes everything." Was it really fear or hate? Ramirez hit the bottle hard, flashbacks of the shooting blending with hate mail. "Murderer," scrawled on envelopes. Klein, now a key witness, faced backlash too. Labeled a snitch by some colleagues, she transferred departments, her marriage straining under the stress. "I saw a man die for nothing," she confided to a therapist, the weight of that night pressing like a vice. The community felt the ripple effects deepest. Detroit's east side, already scarred by poverty and decay, abandoned factories looming like ghosts, potholed streets swallowing tires, saw trust in police plummet to new lows. Crime reports dropped not because of safety, but fear of escalation. Folks handled disputes themselves, vigilante style. Veteran centers overflowed with stories. If they did preacher dirty, what's left for us? One Purple Heart recipient asked at a meeting, fists clenched. National media descended, CNN crews filming murals of Glover sprouting on brick walls. His face stern, Multitool in hand, captioned, "Hero betrayed." But amid the chaos, hope flickered. Reform bills gained traction in city council, mandating bias training and quicker body cam releases. Yet the revelations raised burning questions that haunted everyone. How many other stops ended this way because of unchecked prejudice? Could a simple policy change have saved Willis Glover, or was the system rotten to the core? And as the case hurtled toward trial, with indictments finally filed against Ramirez for involuntary manslaughter, the biggest twist waited in the wings, one that would test faith in justice itself. What if the evidence that could seal the case vanished? The storm wasn't over yet. The storm that had been brewing since that fateful 2020 night in Detroit finally unleashed its fury in the lead up to trial in 2023, with revelations that deepened the wounds and twisted the narrative in ways no one anticipated. The vanishing evidence. It started with a break-in at the evidence locker, reported as a random burglary. But insiders whispered otherwise. Key items went missing. The original Multitool with Jamal's engraving, swabbed for prints but now gone, and backup copies of the enhanced bodycam audio where Glover's plea, "It's not a weapon," rang clear. Evelyn Glover collapsed when told, her hope fracturing. They're erasing him piece by piece. She sobbed to Keisha, clutching a photo of Willis as if it could anchor her against the tide of despair. The family, already drained emotionally and financially, felt the system's boot pressing harder. Was this coincidence, or a deliberate sabotage to protect Ramirez? Investigators doubled down, subpoenaing department logs that uncovered a web of negligence. Ramirez's failed de-escalation trainings weren't isolated. The entire precinct skimped on veteran sensitivity programs, despite a spike in PTSD-related calls from East Side neighborhoods. A whistleblower, a retired black officer named Leroy Thompson, came forward with damning testimony. "I trained Ramirez. Kid had promise, but the culture. It's us vs them. Black vet like preacher. Automatic threat." Thompson's words, delivered in a gravelly voice at depositions, evoked raw anger. Veterans in the gallery nodded, fists clenched, reliving their own brushes with bias. Klein's full statement added fuel. She admitted overhearing Ramirez dismiss a prior complaint as just another thug whining. Her guilt manifesting in sleepless nights and therapy sessions where she confessed, "I should have spoken up sooner. That man's blood is on my hands too." Emotions peaked when federal agents raided Benson's home. The nosy neighbor's grudge ran deeper than a fence spat. Hidden in his attic, printouts of Glover's VA records, stolen from a hacked database detailing PTSD episodes. Benson had weaponized them, tipping off Ramirez anonymously before the call. "Watch out for that guy on Gratiot. He's unstable." The twist: Benson was Ramirez's uncle by marriage, a family tie buried in old records. Conspiracy whispers turned to roars. Was the shooting premeditated, or just a toxic mix of familial loyalty and prejudice? Evelyn confronted Benson at a hearing, her voice breaking. "You took my husband because of your hate. How do you sleep?" Benson's breakdown on the stand, tears streaming down his wrinkled face, offered no catharsis, only more pain. The Glover family's resilience shone through the darkness. Keisha launched a foundation in Willis and Jamal's names, funding counseling for vets, her speeches drawing crowds who shared stories of lost dignity. "Dad taught me faith," she'd say, eyes fierce, but this system tests it every day. Ramirez, facing mounting charges now, including evidence tampering suspicions, isolated himself further, his regret turning inward. Letters to Evelyn begging forgiveness went unanswered, fueling his spiral into depression. Klein, seeking redemption, volunteered at VA centers, her presence a quiet apology to men like Preacher. But the biggest revelation shattered illusions of reform. Leaked emails from PD brass showed they knew about Ramirez's biases from psych evils but ignored them for staffing needs. "Can't afford to lose bodies." One read. Outrage bowled over. Riots flared anew. Windows smashed at City Hall. Demands for overhaul echoing nationwide. As trial dates set for 2024, The case symbolized a broken promise to those who'd served honor abroad, betrayal at home. Yet amid the fury, a sliver of hope, public pressure forced bodycam audits citywide. Would the jury see through the smoke, or let the system shield its own once more? The verdict loomed, pregnant with possibility and dread. Type betrayed in the comments if you've ever felt the system turn its back on you or someone you love. Veterans, share your stories below. The verdict came down in a hushed Wayne County courtroom in Detroit back in early 2024, sealing the fate of a case that had gripped the city since that tragic night in 2020 and exposing the raw nerves of a system rigged against men like Willis, Preacher, Glover. The trial lasted 3 grueling weeks, with prosecutors painting Ramirez as a trigger, happy cop blinded by bias, replaying the bodycam footage until jurors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't fear. The lead attorney thundered, pointing to the screen where Glover's stumbling form filled the frame. This was prejudice. A veteran gunned down for carrying a memory of his dead son. Evelyn Glover testified first, her voice a mix of steel and sorrow. Willis survived IEDs in Iraq, only to die on his own street because someone saw his skin before his service. Keisha followed, sharing Jamal's letters from Afghanistan. The Multitool projected large, harmless, engraved with love. Klein's turn on the stand was pivotal. She detailed Ramirez's overlooked trainings and offhand remarks, her eyes downcast. We were taught to see threats everywhere, but never to question why they always looked a certain way. Ramirez's defense countered hard, humanizing him as a stressed officer in a dangerous job. Split-second decision, his lawyer argued, experts testifying on adrenaline's fog, how a glint in the dark could mimic a blade. Benson, the neighbor, crumbled under cross, admitting his grudge, but denying conspiracy, his tears dismissed as crocodile by the gallery. Veterans packed the benches daily, their silent stares a chorus of accusation, while outside, protests swelled with signs like, "Preacher's blood on blue hands." Emotions ran raw. One juror later confessed nightmares of Glover's final whisper, another of Ramirez's haunted face. But the system whispered its own narrative, jury instructions heavy on reasonable doubt, and officer discretion, words that too often shield the badge. In the end, after 5 days of deliberation, the foreman read not guilty on all counts, citing justified fear in a high-risk encounter. Gasps rippled through the room. Evelyn buried her face in Keisha's shoulder, whispering, "They killed him twice." Ramirez exhaled, hugging his wife, but victory tasted hollow. He resigned weeks later, moving out of state amid death threats. The Glover family walked out into flashing cameras, Evelyn's statement cutting deep, "Justice? This ain't it. It's a license to kill black vets and call it a mistake." The city erupted briefly. Marches turned tense, a few stores looted, but reforms trickled in. Mandatory vet ID checks during stops, bias audits for PD. Yet long-term, the scars lingered. Evelyn founded the Glover Legacy Fund, aiding families of fallen officers and vets alike, her speeches provoking thought. How many more preachers before we fix this broken machine? Keisha rose in nursing ranks, specializing in PTSD care, honoring her dad and brother. Detroit's east side simmered with distrust, crime unsolved as folks avoided cops, a quiet rebellion against a flawed shield. By 2024's close, the case faded from headlines, but its echo persisted, a reminder that for American men like Willis, service abroad doesn't guarantee safety at home. The system, bloated with protections for the powerful, failed another hero, sparking whispers of change that might, one day, become roars. What do you think? Was this justice served or just another whitewash? Drop, failed again. In the comments if the verdict left you raging, and tell me your take on reforming the blue line. If stories like this fire you up and demand truth, smash that subscribe button right now. More real talk coming your way.